Hello everybody, Kane here and welcome to another video of Art of Conquest. So we have patch notes. They're gonna happen about 1.5 days from when I'm gonna release this video. So we might as well talk a little bit about it. There are bugs, there are nerfs, buffs as well as event updates and of course potentials. So let's start from the top. Awaken potentials Kitano and Rufio. So finally, Rufio received his potential. I have not yet seen any of the leaks or PTR stuff from him, so I don't know how powerful he will be or whether or not I will just move my prism to, say, a buffer. Because at the moment, I have majority of the stuff for Rufio decked out and ready for whenever the potential happens. And Kitano, I tried for a very long time to actually make him work, but in the end, he just manages to mess things up over for me. So, there are two builds that you can do for Kitano. One of them is going for like a sort of a DPS build, but I don't have the research for it. And the other one is some sort of a tanky build with the formless wipe. But since I am playing mages, this formless swipe actually messes me over. It pushes the army or the enemies further away from, say, the damage of Avril, from the damage of Valerie, and those abilities usually tend to hit nothing then, or almost anything. And thus I kind of just removed him from my army because he was helping the enemy to stall out some of the battles instead of me actually winning them, which is, yes, sometimes it kind of happened, which was kind of annoying. So I'm not entirely sure whether or not this will bring him back. I'm gonna have to inspect their potentials and see whether or not I would bring them back. And in terms of Rufio, we're gonna see. I have hopes for him, but again, since I didn't really see the patch notes of PTR or whatever, I cannot really say. Then we have increased the rewards of the events. Basically, all of these events are gonna get the new utility boxes, I believe, with the armory stuff, the covenant stuff. So we're gonna get a ton of those resources. Though the other thing we have to touch on is that they are removing all other resources from those events. That means the Forged Firestones, the Astral Stones, the Scroll Scraps, etc., etc. Meaning you're not going to be able to acquire them. The same for Sutra Scrolls and Archaic Tomes. Meaning, even if you're gonna be on a new server or so, you're not gonna get them from events. The only way that you will be able to get them is those same custom utility boxes, which is kind of concerning because majority of the people are going to say that armory stuff and all that kind of stuff is better than all the rest. So I'm kind of wondering what kind of information people are gonna tell others, because basically majority of those things like the gears and etc., the enlightenments are like the backbone of majority of the buffs of, say, like the covenant and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a like, I'm not sad that they changed the rewards, but as, say, a content creator, I also say create videos for people in the earlier realms as well, at least with some comments. So have to also include those people who will be affected the most. For us, majority of us are going to enjoy covenant boxes as well as the armory stuffs, and for majority of the earlier realms, they're gonna have to think very hard what they will be acquiring from these events. So dual tower, increase dual tower rewards, daily rewards rather, with the new custom utility boxes, I do believe. I'm not entirely sure of any other rewards. Balancing adjustments, so we're going down into the buffs and nerfs. So some people kind of mentioned that this one, the Clenched Shield, reduces damage from arrows, javelins, darts, and bullets. but 50% nerfed to 35% is the biggest hit of the Swordsmen, but even then the Swordsmen are going to tank for quite a bit. The thing is, in comparison to this one, the Covenant say nerf, this one doesn't seem that bad. Now, there is a reason for it. Basically in here, you got nerfed by 15%. Archers around my stage, they don't really do that much damage majority of the time, and with a mage you can actually delete the archers in very quickly. I mean, it depends who you face, how highly he has upgraded, how much he's investing, whether or not your heroes got stunned, but essentially mages can just wipe the floor with the archers pretty friggin' easy. So with that aside, this, I don't really know if this is a huge nerf, but this is actually an incredibly huge nerf. Now we have to go down into the math to actually explain how this works. So we have 50% damage reduction at the start of the battle, which gradually diminishes over 32 seconds, meaning essentially if we divide this 50% by 32, we're gonna get like 1.5% of damage reduction per second, meaning after 10 seconds in the battle, we usually just lose like 14-15% damage reduction, so we still have 35%. Do keep in mind, this damage reduction is both physical and magical, meaning the mages of the enemy do less damage. Now, this particular nerf reduced this time interval from 32 to 20, meaning we have to divide 50 by 20 now. And that 10 seconds is going to remove 25% of damage reduction at 10 seconds into the battle. Usually first 10 to 15 to 20 seconds of the battle is when majority of the damage of the mages are going to be exploding the Swordsmen. So basically they nerfed it to the point that the mages will just be wiping the floor with them. Highly likely, because even 10% damage reduction is quite a lot in terms of the damage you will do or are able to do, especially for things like Arcanate, Valerie, area damage, all that kind of stuff. This is actually a pretty huge nerf, and mages likely will body these Swordsmen a lot easier than they actually do now. So yeah, that is probably what's gonna make me swap to some other race. I mean, I'm gonna check, but we're gonna see. So we have Liches. I believe this is a buff. Who could have expected that Liches would get a buff? So the Warlocks increased attack range by 2, so they're not that close to the front line. Upon dying, I believe they increased this 0.6% of max HP to 0.8 of max HP, which of course doubles to magical units. Now the thing about this ability is that it's not true damage. It's also resisted by the resistances, meaning this percent damage doesn't really do that much regardless. Versus say trees or so. I'm not entirely sure whether or not they would fix the code or stuff like that, but essentially this percent damage is reduced by resistances, so they end up doing completely no damage whatsoever, or rather magic damage in terms of max HP, so the magic damage is reduced. I mean, it's all into the wording in terms of it, but essentially they just do no damage. But the the main focus of the Warlocks is the dragon. So usually if you would place the Warlocks, you would kind of want to tank the dragon, because as far as I'm aware, and people told me that they should kill and do kill dragons fairly easy. Probably similarly like Savannah archers were killing the dragons in like 5 to 10 seconds or so. So this is something similar. In terms of then Warlocks, Necrotic Blast increased in 60% of own attacks, so more area damage. And the Dire Warlocks got a new effect, dealing additional 20% damage on units suffering with that. So basically, they retain the other stuff and they get an additional bonus into the ability. Dwarves, they buff the headshot damage as well as the Zen Deadeye's increased in headshot rate by 2% up to 4. Now, the thing is, people use the dire ones just because they don't run out of ammo and they always have that very, very quick attack speed. Now, the thing is, the Zen ones, they would do a ton of damage because they're gonna proc more headshots, but they run out of ammo. And if they run out of ammo, they do incredibly small amount of damage. Like they wouldn't even manage to kill probably a buffer, an off tank or so with that reduced attack speed. So I'm not entirely sure if it's an incredible boost by that 2%, but it really depends how much effect you get by 4% additional headshot stuff. I kind of think that dire ones essentially are kind of better because they don't descale so horribly much as the battle goes on. Savannah Trees nerfed in 15% base HP, which is actually huge because this nerfs base HP, of which majority of the features scale off of. So if a tree has like 200 million HP right now, after this nerf they could have like 160, 170 or so. So this is actually pretty huge hit. And then they further reduce the HP of the trees to match the ones of the Zen and the basic ones, because apparently the dire ones had a little bit more HP. As well as the siphoning of health of nearby regen enemy units, also reduced by 20%. Now the thing is, somewhere I have seen that they actually increase the timer between the summons of like the dire trees. I'm not, probably I dreamt about it or I read somewhere about it, but I'm not entirely sure. So I'm not sure if they forgot to add this to here, or I don't know, I just probably dreamt about this nerf. But we're gonna just keep it at that and I'll just look into it again. So Watchers, I believe they got a nerf because they could stack this particular ability pretty quickly in the beginning of the battle, and now their attack is being scaled every few seconds. So in terms of getting that very early on, the maximum effect is at like 15 or so seconds into the battle, from 15 to 20. So a pretty decent hit in terms of their archers as well. Now, Rakan. This is probably one of the most requested things in terms of any race that could have ever happened. So Rakan has to field their turtle, which is named Shalonian, or however way you want to spell it. And the way, like, or how many squares it takes is just so friggin' insane that every single formation anybody makes is so god awful, horrible. Like, you wouldn't even believe. Like, majority of those formations look like total crap. And now that they adjusted the size of it, it looks a lot more doable to actually make a decent formation. So I think this is something similar to the, I suppose, what you call the size of a dragon. I think, I'm not sure, but I think this is the same size as a dragon, which is good. And now you can actually manage some proper stuff in terms of formations, how you build them, how you place them, and you can have more proper formations or so on the Rakan field instead of some horrible whatever the hell you're able to make in this 4 by 5 friggin' unit, which was goddamn crazy. So I'm pretty much for this sort of buff, and we might see more Rakan players in the future. Of course, we have adjustments to the events. I believe they swapped this particular week instead of the Elixir Rush. Then we have Purge of the Lands, which was removed because the anniversary event happens the next day, Tuesday, by the way. And then we have bug fixes or improvements. So, optimized description of Zen Warlocks in terms of the damage they do in their ability. Adjusted Pinnacle for earlier realms, or rather 116 days or older. Fixed an issue that caused damage reduction attributes to be incorrectly displayed in the armory overview. What? So we have to check. So I believe this is the overview. So what do they mean about that, like incorrect values? So as far as I'm aware, that the further you go with the resistances, the more capped you get. So if they mean by incorrect, so they're likely just gonna remove the full caps of this particular feature and say this 78 will turn to like 150, 200 or so. This would actually be friggin' insane. Like, that would be so friggin' insane that it would just be goddamn crazy, because nothing would do damage to heroes, nothing would do damage to friggin' frontline. Even archers would have like 100% to 100% friggin' resistances. So I don't even know what they mean by actually fixing that, because, I mean, if it was not capped and they're just gonna literally add that much resistances, I mean, there's probably something else to it, but I don't know, man. Then a skin stuff. Fixed an issue that caused the Lich unit Zen Stalker to deal abnormal damage. Who could have thought that Zen Stalkers were dealing abnormal damage? The only thing I noticed is that they were able to destroy 80% of my field in every single battle. That's like probably the only thing that I have noticed. So them saying abnormal damage instead of wiping the field of the enemy usually that they faced is kind of an understatement as far as I'm aware, because some people even fights ended in friggin' 10 to 15 seconds with this. So it's yeah, I'm kind of wondering that why they didn't really fix this earlier, because this is like highly affecting the dual tower PvP. So I don't know. Fixed an issue that caused crit evasion granted by Kitano's Iron Body talent to nearby units to sometimes not take effect. Now, this is actually pretty hard to even know or talk about or provide, or at some point I just wonder, how are they able to even tell these things if some questions they wouldn't like even be able to answer, and those questions like they would be friggin' basic or whatever. For example, like when we have said about the Void Eater literally granting invincibility for stuff, they said no, everything is perfect, everything is fine, and there is no bug. So how are they fixing something in the game which is like so hard to even actually test and know it's bugged, that it's bugged? Like, if they don't notice that Void Eater granted invincibility, so I don't understand how do they notice that this particular effect wasn't actually in effect. Like, that is the question. At some point I'm wondering if they're just not adding, brackets in here, just, to make this bulletin board actually look bigger. I mean, that's all there is to it. But yeah, that's pretty much it, I suppose, for the updates for the bulletin board. I think the human swordmen are actually getting a pretty huge hit in terms of the mages, so probably I might try dwarf mechs, but I don't really like the interface. So currently I'm kind of thinking either back to Lich and I don't know, maybe try out Scorpions or Dire Stalkers again, maybe Lich Warlocks as well to just tag the dragons. Or I don't know, man. Maybe Rakan, but then again, I can't really play Rakan due to the lag. It's very questionable, but we're gonna see. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something new. And if you did, do hit that subscribe button. It would help me out a lot. As well as if you would wish to support me more than just watching my videos, I have made a Patreon page where you would be able to do just that. In return, I would be able to help you out more individually in terms of events, PvP, formations, and stuff like that. As well as I would like to thank all of my patrons for the support. I really appreciate it for your subscriptions. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for watching. Take care and stay safe out there.